Hello everyone. In this session, we are going to read about Amending Act of 1781, which is also called the Act of Settlement or Declaratory Act. We all studied about the Regulating Act of 1773, which was the first step taken by the British government to regulate and control the affairs of East India Company in India. So why this act was implemented? So this act was implemented to rectify or to solve the defects of the Regulating Act of 1773. There were few defects according to the British government. So to rectify those defects, to solve those problems, this act was implemented. So what was the problem? The problem was the tussle between Supreme Court and the Governor General Council. Simultaneously, there were two powers. One was Supreme Court of Bengal, and the other was the Governor General Council of Bengal. So there was a tussle for power. Supreme Court members were not cooperating with the Governor General Council members, and vice versa. So this Amending Act was implemented to just rectify the defects of the Regulating Act of 1773. So under this act, several powers of the Supreme Court was curtailed. So they reduced the powers of Supreme Court under this act. And this act was in the favor of Governor General Council. So under this act, Governor General Council were excluded from the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Revenue matters were taken out of Supreme Court jurisdiction, and now the revenue matters comes under exclusively come under Governor General Council. The Supreme Court got nothing to do with the revenue matters. Then no person employed by the company was subject to Supreme Court. So it is like the Supreme Court had no powers on the employees who were appointed under English East India Company. And in case of natives, personal law was applicable. So when it comes to the British officers who were appointed under English East India Company, Supreme Court didn't had any power over those officers, but on the other hand, on the natives, Supreme Court had complete power over the people of Calcutta, the people of Bengal, and the personal law was applicable. Like Hindu law was implemented for the Hindus, and the Muslim law was implemented for the Muslims. And this act excluded revenue matters from the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, and Sardar Diwani Adalat, a court of record, was also set up under this act. So the very important thing to note here is it was the first attempt in India towards separation of executive from judiciary by defining the respective areas of jurisdiction. So Regulating Act, it was the first step taken by the British government to regulate. It was just to regulate the affairs of East India Company in India. But when it comes to the Amending Act of 1781, this was the first attempt to separate the executive and judiciary by defining the respective areas of jurisdiction. So this is all about the Amending Act of 1781. Thank you.